Joining me now, Betsy Stevenson, a former member of the Council of Economic Advisors under President Biden and a professor of public policy and economics at the University of Michigan. I mean, the economic impact something like this could have is massive. Welcome to the program. Auto workers last went on strike 2019. How would this be different?
Well, I think a really good place to start is let's put this in the context of how is it different today in 2023 than in 2019. We've heard a lot of support for unions, but the reality is in 2022, we had the lowest unionization rate in the United States on record. So there aren't a lot of workers who belong to unions in the United States anymore. So the union needs to show that it really can help workers earn higher wages, have better living conditions, have better communication and better jobs. So I think they're fighting to show that they're relevant and that they're necessary. And then the second thing that's really different is we've had 2 years where wages have grown faster for non-unionized workers than they have for unionized workers. So what we've seen is that unionized workers, they've been losing out because this higher than normal inflation caught everybody by surprise. Workers who aren't on any kind of contract, they just walk out and say, look, I don't want this job anymore. You're not paying me enough. I'm going to get a new job. And we've seen enormous job changes. But these, UAW workers, they've stuck on the job, even though they haven't had sufficient cost of living adjustments. And so I think that's why this is such a big fight right now. And that's what's different for the workers. Mm-hmm. You could also be saying what's different for the U.S. economy.
Right. And we'll talk about the economy in a moment, but let's look at what some of their demands are. 40% pay increase, 32-hour work week, cost of living increases, elimination, as Kelsey said, of the tiered wages and return of traditional pension plans. What leverage do they have other than going to the picket line? Do they have a fight that they can win?
Well, one of the things they're pointing to is the profitability of the industry and pointing out that labor needs its fair share of that profitability of the industry. So I think that's one thing they have going for them. I think on the flip side, the reality is that it's the big three automakers aren't just competing against potentially a non-unionized workforce in other countries, but they see one of their biggest competitors as Tesla, and Tesla's notorious for terrible working conditions, very dangerous working conditions. So we're moving to a world where there's alternatives for these companies. I don't think the big three is going anywhere other than negotiating with their union right now. I think that's the leverage they have, but it's limited.
Talk about the impact a strike would have, the far-reaching impact on suppliers and car dealers across the country.
Car dealers and suppliers have had a rough couple of years. We're finally sort of seeing things normalize. The last thing any of them want is to see everything shook up by there being, once again, delays in getting cars out to consumers. Part of what led to the big increase in costs of cars were the fact that there were large delays in getting consumers the cars they wanted. And that led to people being willing to pay more for used cars and willing to pay more for the limited number of new cars that were coming onto the lots. I think no one wants to see that kind of decline. And I think the real risk we face right now is that there's a lot of things that could cause the economy to weaken, in the coming year. And so adding another risk factor, a big strike like this is a risk factor for the overall macroeconomy weakening. I think that we're in a riskier place now than we were in 2019 in terms of, is the economy likely to slow, and could this exacerbate a slowdown in the economy.
Right. I mean, people are already saying I'm paying a lot for gas. My monthly bills are more. Just consumers in general have been stretched pretty thin. If all of a sudden car prices go up, that's difficult for so many. The UAW workers say they may strike in targeted plants if it comes to that. What would be the reasoning, Betsy, behind doing that?
Well, I think what they're trying to do is come up with the best strategy they can to put as much pressure on, the the big three to be able to meet their demands without actually causing that much harm. And that they don't want to cause harm, right? Harm is a byproduct of negotiation. And it is, they've got to flex their muscles and show that they mean business and they want more for their workers.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.